Hi, this is Dhruv,
And this is John.
and this is week 29 of the Devlog.
So today's topic is how do programmers deal with mental stress?
But before that, I wanted to ask a question. How important do you guys think it is for you to take care of your mental health while you're doing game dev? Do you think you should just push through it, or do you think you should take the time to actually take care of yourself and your mental health?
Yeah, there were several Reddit posts that I saw. They were like, oh, just buckle up and handle it, and deal with it. And I wonder, do you guys think that's actually a viable strategy? But as an introvert, I always look at Drew and
Yeah, right.
and say, Drew, a fellow introvert, doesn't seem to be expressing a lot of emotion, and I'm curious, what were the times that actually made you emotional? Because I feel like as dudes, and this might be a stereotype, but we don't really talk about emotions that much, and I'm really curious what you have felt about game dev this past 7 years. Or the 2 times, 3 times, 4 times that you have felt emotional.
So, overtly emotional, I think, was definitely after Whereblade, was the most emotional part. During Whereblade, pretty much we hadn't, I guess, fully figured out what the game was until probably a year and a half in. And then maybe we spent another year just actually making the game. And what I realized during that time is, well, kind of what I pushed aside is that Whereblade had a lot of things that depended on each other. So when you're programming, one thing that seems to not be as important, but I have learned is super important, is the organization of your code. A lot of times during NEN, I would just kind of, which was our very first game, I would just kind of make code for the purpose of whatever we're currently doing, and then maybe a little bit of extrapolation could be used, like a little bit more than what its main purpose is, but not much usually. So there would just be a bunch of scripts that aren't used and a bunch of things that would just up the compile time for no reason. So in Whereblade, I really tried to lessen that amount of code, but due to the fact that our design was never really set in place when we first started, there was still a lot of code that existed from previous kind of iterations of the game. And I still think I got much better at coding it, but those previous iterations, I somehow, for some reason, had an attachment to them, and I wanted to still use them for our newer creation as we went on. I wanted to be able to build on that base script rather than making more scripts, because from NEN I thought, I shouldn't keep making scripts.
Wait, that actually, sorry, I'm kind of curious. When there were a change and then changes that you don't agree with, and then how do you deal with that frustration? Do you just go with it and just swallow it, or do you just is there some ways that you felt like your opinions weren't heard and then we forcibly changed? Because it sounds like from Whereblade, the big change was a big part of the problem.
Well, I don't think that. I feel like when we were doing Whereblade, the change wasn't like I didn't want the change. It was something that was almost needed for the game. It started off as a completely different game. I think the main problem was the fact that we had so many people giving so much input on the game. And that made it different than what we wanted it to be initially. We wanted it to kind of be like one of our older games, Dream Arena, but kind of like just a revamped version and a little bit more cool. But we changed everything that was initially about the game, including the way that the phone is held, just because we wanted to kind of please our audience or whatever. Probably could have finished the game in 3 or 4 months if we hadn't done that. But regardless, the point is that it started off when we made a game and you start coding for a game. I started coding for a specific type of game. Still, even in Whereblade, even in the new games, you have to code generally for a game. That's just how it works. But there are certain things that you can extrapolate from, and I think I tried to do that in Whereblade, but I wasn't that good at it. I was still kind of figuring it out. And what I learned throughout the process was that there's no easy way to be able to kind of be like, yeah, that's the way that I can make things modular, and that's the way that I can create the perfect code. It depends on how you are as a programmer. What do you think is more organized? Some people think that what I feel is very messy is actually really organized. Other people don't. And then so it's actually a lot about the programmer personality. And the other thing is, who else is using it? So are you with other programmers? If you're with other programmers, which we weren't, but if you are, then you kind of have to make sure that that script is separated from every single other script in a way where it doesn't interfere, so that the other programmer can work on his own thing and you can work on your own thing. But let's say, for example, you are the artist. I want to make a script that you can use and that I don't have to keep editing so that you can have all the functionality. So I want to be able to lay out all the functionality, but I need to make it in a clean way, and then I also need to make it in a way that allows you to be able to see everything very clearly and it's not too cluttered all at once. And in Whereblade, the way that I solved that was I created a bunch of editor scripts. So I made it so that there was like 100 different editor scripts, which are scripts that just change the GUI within the editor. It doesn't do anything with the base code. The base code is coded and the editor script is coded on top of it. And that, what I realized, was absolutely unnecessary for a lot of things, because it's double the work. And anytime you add something to the script, you have to add something to the editor script as well.
Wait, so sounds like as a programmer, you're not only thinking about whether or not a code works, you also have to think about whether or not the people who are working on the game, how they are dealing with the code, which is the GUI part of the editor of the stuff, and also whether or not the code is organized in an efficient way for future changes and all that stuff. Like, when you have to take care and deal with that many things, how do you handle the stress? Is there something you do when you, like, let's say when you sit down, you're like, I am so stressed out. How do you get over it? Or do you get over it?
So the organizing part is more fun for me, at least. I feel like if you're a programmer and you hate to organize, you're not going to last long. If you just think that you're gonna be super stressed from just organizing, it's gonna be really hard, because you're
Yeah, you definitely still sound stressed, because I still don't know how you deal with the stress. It was just how you got to the stress. What do you do to relax yourself or get over, like, deal with it? I still don't know.
Well, so one thing is that Brave Eduardo, the game that we're working on now, as everyone should probably know, is much easier to work on. The game is only restricted to itself. It's also coded really well, in my opinion. Everything is very modular. It's easier to figure out when a problem goes wrong. It's not perfect. I don't think I can really make the perfect code, but it's much better, and will always continue to get better as I code more.
But so working on a new project and coded better helps you de-stress?
I don't know if it helps me de-stress, but it does help me kind of get out of that frame of mind. But I mean, obviously there's things that I do, like meditation and stuff, which are outside of game dev, which help me not necessarily de-stress, but more like deal with the reality of the situation, I guess you could say. And it also helps me kind of, well, say if I open a project and I just don't feel like I want to work on it, it helps me kind of like deal with that, well, being like, okay, yeah, I can still work on it, it's fine, it's not that big of a deal or whatever. And so I guess a combination of those things. But really, the new game, like Brave Eduardo, the good thing about that game is the stress for me doesn't come from the coding of that game, because that game is actually pretty easy to code. The stress comes mainly from like marketing or doing something outside of the game, and that isn't as bad, because that is something that that I know can kind of slowly resolve itself, and that I don't necessarily have full control over. And when I know that I don't have full control over it, it's not something that I feel like I can mess up. But the game itself, if you do that, you have full control over. So if that, when you open and it's like you feel anxious or whatever, then you feel like, oh shit, like I'm the reason why this is going like incorrectly, or I'm the reason why there's so many bugs or whatever, you know.
Would you suggest other programmers to do meditation? What was the first reaction you got when, well, first of all, who introduced you to meditation, and what was it that convinced you that it helped you clear your mind and that actually helps you programming?
So my mom is the one that introduced me to meditation, and I don't know. So meditation is one of those things where almost everybody like that I've seen like says, oh yeah, you should do it, whatever. But I think it's something that is not it's not necessarily a cure to anything, and it's not a way to be like, yeah, this when you do meditation everything will be resolved. It's not that at all. It's kind of like, I would say, like exercising or like working out. You do it, and then you won't work for a very long time, and then eventually, but something will change. Like what I noticed is that I'm much more. I can deal with things better whenever something that is unexpected or happens or something like that. I can deal with it better because of meditation.
How did your mom introduce you to meditation?
So she went to this camp. It's like a 10-day retreat, a silent retreat. And then in that whole 10 days, all they do is meditate. You don't talk. You pretty much, you eat, you sleep, and you meditate. That's it. And you can only eat lunch and breakfast. And so she's like, oh, you should do it, you should do it. She nagged me into going. So I went. And I went in last year in August after Whereblade was released, actually. And so I went. And then after those 10 days, I realized something pretty... I realized that this thing actually works. That this thing works for me. It's something that I think can make a very big difference. But it's something that only makes a big difference if you keep doing it every single day. Like I do it, I still do it an hour a day. I should be doing it twice a day, but I only do it once a day in the morning. But regardless, it's something that I feel like if you keep doing it consistently, it creates a very... slowly but surely creates like a pretty massive difference in how you not only think of like the situations you're encountering, but also like the people that you're talking to and stuff like that.
Right. So you are finding ways to take care of your mental health, and meditation seems to be your way. And then I'm gonna guess that it sounds like you do think that mental health is very, very important for a programmer then.
Yeah, I think mental health is very important regardless of who you are, programmer
that's true,
or artist or whatever. Yeah, because I feel like all that it does is that if you not clear your mind, that's I guess is the wrong way. If you kind of are able to understand your mental health and you're able to kind of make sure that you are in check, you will live your life better. That's what I think. And then when you live your life better, that's like the whole point of doing, whether we're doing game dev or whatever it is you're trying to kind of get to a certain point or whatever so that you are living your life better. But if you are able to take care of your mental health, I feel like you are able to live your life as you are going through your journey in a way that is good. That might sound super spiritual or whatever, but it's a way that I feel like is something that is integral to you, just like working out or whatever. It's something that is very, very important, and it's something that will only help you in game dev. If you want to, it'll make you more creative maybe, or at least it will take out some of those stresses that are unnecessarily blocking you from working.
Okay. Well, sounds like mental health is good. I like what you said. Yeah, I can't really think of anything where mental health isn't important. So yeah. So before it turns into a propaganda, because I do remember when Dhruv came out of the camp, he was very, very passionate in explaining to me why I should probably do it too. And I was like, wow, it sounds actually pretty helpful. So it is on my mind. But before we go into before it turns into that part, we'll probably have to end now, and thank you guys for listening.
This is a long video this week.
Yeah. All right, we'll see you guys next week.
All right, bye.
Bye.